Can you remember that? Whilst obviously it was positive, when you clicked that button, then it came up pass. What was that feeling like?
Oh my God, it was awesome. Like I remember, like, you're in a testing center, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So like literally that day I'm driving to the testing center. I'm going in the same testing center, you know, that I failed the first time, right?
Jaws music playing in the background.
No. So what happens is, like, you take all the exam questions, right? And then the computer, like, you're sitting in front of this computer, and literally, like, it's almost like the computer is thinking, because it's like the screen turns blue, and it's almost like you can hear it, like, you know, just like, I don't know. It's like it turned blue. It was completely like almost blue screen of whatever, and then all of a sudden it came up pass, and I was like, oh my God, like, thank goodness. It was just, honestly, I think it was such a sense of relief.
Hi, and welcome to the Sunday Lunch Project Manager podcast for Sunday, the 30th of June 2024. This is your host, Nigel Creaser. And today I've got a rerun of my interview with Patti Mclaughlin, PgMP. So enjoy. Hi, it's Nigel again. If you are listening to this, that means that you are listening to the old style of the podcast. You may like the old style of having it split into two pieces, but I know some of my listeners didn't. So what I've done, I have created the option for you to be able to listen to everything all in one go. You don't have to wait till next week. You could get it now. At the moment, it's just on Spotify. We'll be coming on Patreon as well. Costs you, was it £3 plus the VAT, I think it is, over a month. And that means you get the whole thing all in one go. So the other advantage, that'll be coming out on a Sunday. This one, you will notice, has just come out Monday. Wouldn't make a big difference, really, but there you go. You've got it. You've got that choice. Helps me invest in better equipment and maybe a few other bonus items going forward. So if you can spare, essentially, a cup of coffee once a month, and you get the benefit of getting it earlier and getting it all together. So pop along to Spotify. Have a look in there where it is, and there'll be a little lock sign against one called number 132/133, John Henney, the voice coach. And that's the combined one, and you should be able to click on there, do what Spotify tells you to do to register and put all your payments in. Yeah, that's it. And the only thing, if you have done that and you do it, I don't know if I get details on it yet. It's very new, so send me. Ping me a message through whatever medium you can get hold of me, and you'll get a mention on the show. So again, thanks very much, and let you carry on with the show. Cheers now. So I have a number of sponsors, affiliate links, in the way that it's set up, that have kindly allowed me to share their services, really. The first one is Mike Clayton, and Mike runs online PM courses, and it is a great resource for getting those fundamentals of project management trained, reasonably priced, and Mike presents it in an accessible and clear manner. You can check out some of his videos on his YouTube channel and kind of give you a view of where they are. But the code for that, if you go to nigelcreaser.com/online PM courses, all one word, lowercase, that'll redirect you to it. There's very different levels that you can buy. You can buy individual courses, you can buy pathways as well, if you like. And I get a kickback off those. Mike kindly shares me that. So if you do jump on and use it, I hope you find it really useful. I think he has money back guarantees and things like that as well. So there's very limited risk on that. So jump on that. And that, again, it's nigelcreasy.com/online PM courses. And enjoy.
So today I'd like to welcome to the Sunday Lunch Project podcast, Patti Mclaughlin. I hope I've said that right. PMP and PgMP. Born in Canada, and after years of living on the East Coast, Patricia, known as Patti, relocated to Evergreen, CO, which I think is Colorado. This is my geography not great, in 2009. Described as a global compliance implementation project and program manager, she enjoys mentoring and sharing industry best practices. She's received a bachelor's degree from Towson University and earned a certificate in project and program management. She's worked at places such as Thalesis, Marriott International and Western Union, and was the 862nd person to obtain the PMI's PgMP, the Program Management Professional Certification, and works in the project management profession and also provides mentoring through the PMI. So welcome to the show, Patti.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Brilliant. So let's start right at the beginning of when Patti appeared in Canada. Where in Canada, and what tell me about Canada in your early times.
Sure. So I was born in Renfrew, Ontario, Canada. It's a little small town about an hour west of Ottawa, the capital. And Renfrew is most known for actually hockey tape. So I'm a big hockey fan, and if you wonder where all those hockey players get their hockey tape from, it's my little town of Renfrew.
So as a Brit over here, obviously you being Canadian, you have to be a hockey fan. I think it's part of the genes, isn't it? But what's hockey tape then?
So hockey tape is used on the hockey sticks, and just helps the hockey players, give them support, have to shoot that puck. And I am a big hockey fan. I have a cousin in my family that played professional hockey for the Calgary Flames, and now we cheer for the New York teams. It's playoff hockey season here in the U.S., and my husband's from New York, so we cheer for the New York teams. But hockey is a big part of our lives, watching it now and going to games. Brilliant. And did you play hockey yourself? No, I didn't. I just love watching it and didn't do it myself, but I do enjoy ice skating. Ah, right. That's a whole I'm like Bambi on ice when I'm ice skating, so that's quite different experiences there. So you said you're in you said New York there, and I said that you'd relocated to Evergreen, CO, which is that Colorado? Is that right? Are you in New York now? Or? I do live in Evergreen, Colorado now, and it reminds me. My town reminds me a lot of growing up in Canada, because we just had snow a week ago, so it still comes and goes here. But Evergreen is about 20 minutes away from Denver, and our town's known in the foothills. So we're kind of like, if you heard of some of the big ski resorts in Colorado, like Vail or Breckenridge, you would fly into Denver and kind of pass our town and head up to the ski resorts. So we're usually about 10 degrees cooler than Denver, and it's a nice little town with. We have a lot of wildlife here, walking through the neighborhood, and it's a nice place to live. Brilliant. So you say you're there. You've got, and you mentioned your husband. And I know we were talking before. You have a little one as well. What's family for you then? Sure. So I have been married to my husband, Ryan, for 6 years. And we have a 2-year-old, he's almost 2.5, son named Torin. And he loves to play. He keeps me busy. We also have a cat and a fish. And all of our parents are back on the East Coast of the U.S. in New York area, Florida, Pennsylvania area. And then the rest of my immediate family also still resides in Canada.
Right. All right, cool. So you're spread around quite a lot then.
Yes.
Yeah. So you said you grew up in Renfrew. What was it? What was it like growing up in Renfrew, Ontario?
So growing up in Renfrew was really fun. We spent a lot of time growing up with my grandparents. They had a huge farm, and most weekends were spent out, playing outside, jumping in hay, gardening, being around animals, just really doing a lot of stuff outside. I know that I love to ride my bike around the neighborhood. I had a lot of friends in school, and the funny thing is I always remembered going to school almost in a snowsuit. So I think my son's going to be like that too now, growing up in Colorado. But we just we did a lot of stuff outdoors. And then when I was 12, my mom remarried and we moved to the US. So I relocated with her, and my stepfather, we lived in Maryland. So we moved to Gaithersburg, Maryland at the beginning of 7th grade for me.
Right.
And then I went to high school and college in Maryland, and then moved to Virginia for a couple of years. And then I ended up in Colorado in 2009.
So you've traveled a little bit then?
I have. And I've done, traveled and living different places. And then I also enjoyed traveling kind of years ago before when I had a little bit more time. I've been to Europe a couple of times, and just cruises, vacations, I like to go out and do and see stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
So in this time when you were in Renfrew, or when you were in Maryland, what did you want to be when you grew up? Was it a project manager?
No, it's funny when I think about a project manager growing up, I don't even think I knew what a project manager was. I just even through school or college when I was going, it wasn't really an area of study. I don't even think I've knew a project manager or heard that term. So I think when I was really young, when you have when you go through school, sometimes you have those every year you take a school picture and you get what do you want to be? When I look back at those, I think initially I wanted to be a teacher, and then I wanted to be a lawyer, which that didn't pan out. But I think when I was in high school, I actually had a really great business teacher, and I was taking some of the business related classes. And I remember in high school, I won this little award for my business classes. And I think that's when I really became interested in more business management and getting an understanding of kind of what goes on in business. And I to this day, I still think one of the most important classes I took in high school was typing.
Yeah. Yeah, I can empathize with that. I remember doing that, and back when I was doing it, it was on a mechanical typewriter, but it means that typing emails these days or status reports is a bit quicker than some other people I see across the desk sometimes. So I think it's a benefit. Certainly.
It definitely is.
Yeah.
So those were kind of my interests, and then then as I moved into college, you try to go into school and pick a major or have an idea of where you should be going. At least I wanted to when I started college. And so then I chose my major to be business administration. And one of the things that we had to pick was kind of a concentration, and it could have been just management, or it could have been marketing, or it could have been human resource management. And I just chose management because I wasn't quite sure exactly what I wanted to do. So that kind of gave me a more general approach of classes I could take and see different areas of business to focus on. And it turned out to be a good major for me going forward.
So you were kind of setting yourself up for project management, but without the project bit.
I was, without knowing what a project manager was. And, when I think back to those days, I really don't think I know exactly when I found out what a project manager was, which we'll probably touch on in a little bit. But back in college, I can't say I really knew what one was then.
Yeah, it's not a surprise. It's I've yet to speak to someone who is well. My children tell me they don't know what I do for a living anyway. So I think it is quite an odd concept, a project manager, as a general thing. So you're saying you did your major in management, and so was that in? So I said Tucson. Is that Towson University? Towson University?
It is Towson.
Towson, yeah. I said it.
Towson University, which is in Towson, Maryland, and it's very close to Baltimore. Right. So I was there for 4 years and got a Bachelor of Arts in Business Administration with my concentration in management. And then, in terms of just education afterwards, once I began working in the project manager role, then I focused on continuing my education with certifications. As you mentioned, my project management professional, my PMP certification, I got that in 2009, and then the program management certification in 2013.
Cool. So you went to you did your business administration. You mentioned that you were thinking about being a lawyer and that didn't work out. Was that something you started to go down towards, or was it just kind of just not something that you thought you would go for? Was that a real one there?
I think there were a couple of things that kind of steered me in a different direction. As I got older, I realized just how much schooling was involved in doing that. Mm-hmm. And yeah. I think back then, honestly, I wasn't, being a project manager, I've certainly gained more confidence in terms of just communication and speaking. But, there was a point in time where you think about, a teacher speaking in front of a classroom, or a lawyer speaking in front of a courtroom, and all those people staring at you.
Yeah.
I think back then I just wasn't, that kind of just, it steered me in a different direction. And I didn't, I think it was, I was looking at business management, or if for the lawyer route, it probably would have been the criminal justice path. And then as I got kind of closer to high school, I figured, well, maybe I'd have more opportunities going the business route.
Yeah, sounds like a logic. There's lots of different twists and turns on what makes us step different ways. So obviously you didn't jump out of university with a project management degree, diving in to do a project manager, and you probably would have struggled to find one. And I see. You had a couple of roles before you were project manager. Do you want to tell us about your first role then?
Sure. So, when I, as I was going through school, when I was in high school, I had an office assistant job. So this was just like a little, kind of just helping out in an office environment. And really, besides babysitting back in the early day, I've always had office jobs. So when I graduated and had my, business administration degree, I was like, okay, well, what do I do now? So I was looking for positions that would match up with my degree and what I've learned. And in college, towards my senior year, I also had an internship. So I had a lot of, office work experience continuously, even on school breaks, just leading up to, now having this degree. And then I was hired my first job, which was Hanger Orthopedic Group. And it was an orthotics and prosthetics company. And I worked directly for one of the financial controllers. And it was probably like the best position that I could get to kind of lead me in my career path. I learned so much in that position, just from being in a professional office environment. I learned about financial statements and doing taxes and leases and just a whole variety of financial, duties that a controller does, and assisting with all of those tasks on a daily basis. And after being there for a little while, my controller that I worked directly for told me he was leaving the company, which was very sad at the time because I enjoyed so much working with him and learning from him. And he told me he was going to a company called ExecuStay, which was a corporate housing company at the time. And I thought, oh, wow, that's a good opportunity for him. And, he had suggested to me that, if it was possible, he would like me to join him. And, this job would have been awesome to get because it was much closer to my house. And, I was just a 20-something, person working downtown, having to pay a lot of, bills at the time and living on my own. So to get a job closer to home and not have to pay for parking every day was a great opportunity. And sure enough, he stayed true to his word. And, there was open positions at the company and I was able to apply and I was able to make the move over to ExecuStay, which was corporate housing. And it was a wonderful, wonderful move for me.
Brilliant. So how did you, from that, and how did you get into the project management arena? How and why did you jump into that area of business?
Sure. So when I moved over to ExecuStay, I was still kind of in the financial administrator role. I went into the company. I was still doing some of the same tasks I did at my previous company, but I had the opportunity to kind of show my skills to the owners of ExecuStay. And I didn't know it at the time, but their company, they had built the company, and their goal was to grow the company and sell it to Marriott International. And that is what happened. And, being able to kind of work and go through that acquisition was just incredible. There were more opportunities to grow in my role, and the IT department was looking for a business analyst. And at the time, again, I wasn't quite sure what a business analyst did at the time, but I, when I looked at the job description, I had the skills. I had, the degree that they wanted for my, going back to my business administration degree. I had been working in the finance group, and what they were really looking for was for a business analyst to join their team that could help translate requirements from finance to the IT systems. So with my background working in that department and then my education, I applied, and it turned out that I was a good fit. And so from that point on, I kind of joined the IT team, and I learned about what a business analyst does. I did requirements, I did testing, I did business modeling, I did all of this stuff. But most importantly, I was a business analyst on a project team. And that kind of gave me an entry into the project management world, where we did, projects on implementing new system requirements, projects for finance. A lot of our projects were interfaces for the system. And so, I began working with project managers, and through my years at Marriott, I continued to grow in my career. So I started off in that business analyst position in IT, and then I moved into a systems analyst position. And then from there, just, began more involved in projects, and then had the opportunity to start leading my own projects. And that's how my entry to the PM world really started.
Yeah. So your first, let's go to that first project then. What was that first project? What do you remember about it? And how do you remember the fact that it got handed to you as being, you are the project manager for this piece of work?
Sure. So, one of the first projects I remember being a part of, not necessarily leading, but being a part of, was we were implementing a new property management system in executive stay, and it was called Oscar. And, I was in that position. I was the business analyst. I remember I was gathering requirements. I was chosen to lead all of user acceptance testing for the application. And I had to plan and conduct UAT and, learn processes and everything like that. And it was really a great opportunity to being like the first real project I was involved in. Later on, when I got a chance to lead myself, I moved from executive stay to Marriott headquarters, and I became part of a small but new group called Enterprise Architecture, and I was working with a wonderful mentor and lady who I love dearly to this day, who really, kind of gave me the position, and we were going to build out this new department. And the goal was to develop enterprise processes for all of IT. So a standard way of doing requirements management, a standard way of testing, implementing standard tools and processes. So it was really building it from scratch. And, it was such a great opportunity because we worked with consultants to help us do this. We did presentations, we built toolkits, we gathered metrics. We really had to kind of like develop a framework and then roll it out to all of Marriott IT and prove that it would work. And just to be a part of that project and succeed, and we had the opportunity to share our successes. It was just an awesome experience, and it really allowed me and gave me the confidence to grow in my project management career.
It sounds like you had an absolute whale of a time with that one.
It was very, looking back, I just, I remember all of the work that we put into it, and it was just, and I remember people saying to me too that, that we never do it, like that it would, like people would be kind of against it, and we did. And I think that's when I learned that, not everybody likes a project manager. So, and to your point earlier, not everybody knows what project managers do. And, but, the one thing I learned by doing that as well is that, project management is it's more than just a project. I mean, that was a big change management effort. And, that's one thing I think I've carried with me in my career going forward is that, when you approach a project, I always said that there, I have one job to do, and that's to implement the project. But a lot of times it's really about it's really a change management effort, and then you implement a new process or project or tool or something like that. But along the way, you really have to get buy-in in order to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always going to be people feeling that they're done to in any project, and there'll be some people who, it's that whole stakeholder pattern, isn't it, of so that the people who don't really care about what your project's doing because to them they're not seeing any benefit of it, other people who see it as a negative and will fight against you, and you've got all those different types of stakeholders. And you don't, when you look at it and you go, well, we're doing it for the business, that for the organization, it's an organizational decision to do it, that not everyone stands behind an organizational decision and supports you, do they?
That is true.
Yeah, so it's fighting those conflicting priorities within organizations. So that was your start with project management. It sounds like from the way you were doing it there, it was very much a project about projects, about getting those projects in place.
It was, we did some pilots, we developed these processes at Marriott, and then we did pilots with 2 different IT groups within the organization. I remember one was more marketing focused and the other was more financial focused, so we could kind of see the differences between the 2 areas. We also at the time rolled out tools to help support testing and gather requirements, and we used the Rational tool set to pilot those. And so it was constantly working with the project teams that were participating in our pilot and getting metrics and feedback from it, while remembering that these individuals still have their daily jobs. So they were helping us out with these pilot projects, and then and still doing their day-to-day work. But we took all of that and we had to try to show adoption of our framework. And once we successfully came up with our requirements management framework and processes, then we moved on to testing. So we knew the rate of project success and failure depended a lot on requirements. And then after requirements, we focused on testing within the SDLC framework, because that was another area where we could definitely use help. So we were kind of tackling each of the different processes, and it was just really, looking back, it's just really exciting that we were able to do all that work really from scratch.
Excellent. So looking on your LinkedIn profile, I see that there's a few places you've been since Marriott, and what maybe it was the Marriott one, I don't know, what would you say would be the largest piece of or project piece of work that you've done, or program work? And when I say largest, whether that would be whatever the metric you use, whether that was financial costs, whether that's number of man days or amount of business change that you've implemented as part of it, what would you say to you felt like the biggest piece, the biggest project you've had, and importantly, what did you learn from it when you were implementing that?
Sure. So when I moved to Colorado, I went to work for Western Union in their corporate office, and I went to work in a PMO, project management organization, in compliance. And one of the, this is really, I think, where a lot of my experience leading from project management into program management also expanded. So I worked on a global rollout to implement data integrity rules for Western Union. And really what that means, in I guess the most simplest terms, is that if a customer goes to do a transaction for Western Union, there's certain bits of information that customer has to provide, whether you're sending money or receiving money. And depending on, we want to make sure that the company is capturing accurate information. So we have accurate data in our system. So for example, if your credit card number has to be a certain number of digits, we would validate that. If a driver's license, is a certain number of digits, each field when you're doing a transaction, we would validate the information that was in there. And so we came up with this project where we were going to put in data integrity rules so that the information that we were capturing was accurate and that, our systems weren't going to get flooded with bad information. And we did this, and we did it per country. So, Western Union is a global company, and I worked with countries from, India to Poland to Austria to, countries all over the world. And it was a large effort. What we did is we developed a roadmap of what countries we were going to implement these rules. We would have to work with the partners in those countries, to identify, what type of rules needed to be in place, what kind of regulations are in those countries, what we could implement, what we couldn't. A name in the U.S. May be very different than a name in Brazil, for example, like capturing that information. Mm-hmm. So it was a huge rollout effort. And in terms of just planning, in terms of time, in terms of working with all of those global counterparts. And it was a really great experience. For me personally, as a project manager, I learned so much working on this project. I learned what I needed to do. I learned a lot of times what I needed to learn or what not to do. And, it's just, it really, to this day, I still have some relationships with some of those people in different countries that I worked with. And a lot of it, I've never met them. You have to kind of build those relationships over the phone or through video chat and back then we weren't actively using video chat, just conference calls. So, but it really is a project that I'm very proud of.
Excellent. So let's flip it on the other side. What is the biggest project screw up that you've had, and what did you learn from it? I always like this question, by the way. I like to hear.
Well,
I like to hear people squirm.
Let me think about this for a minute. So there's, one thing that I've learned in terms of project screw ups and planning and everything is, things don't always go according to plan. So one thing that I really learned, especially working in a global environment, is that, you have to think that when you're planning stuff, a lot of companies have, especially in IT, a lot of companies have freeze periods where they don't roll out code into production. Mm-hmm. So I remember planning an entire rollout, planning a project, and then, afterwards learning from other IT counterparts that, well, we can't roll out anything, in between Christmas and New Year's because, it's a holiday period, or we can't release anything in January because a lot of our development team is offshore and it's a holiday in the country. So there's been a lot of different things where, you plan out projects for me, and then I learn from a global perspective, there's some major thing happening in that country. I know for Western Union in particular, Mother's Day, which just passed for us, is a huge holiday. And, when you think about the big holidays, as a young project manager, you think about Christmas or, maybe Thanksgiving, but you don't really think about, I didn't really think about Mother's Day as being that.
So how come Mother's Day is such a big one for that then? What drives that? Is it
Because
just...
I think everyone that uses the services sends money to their moms, and
I see.
or a lot of transactions are exchanged during that time, which I didn't think about, but again, there was, Western Union had freeze periods where we did not release code. So if you had your project, if you had a project that needed to be implemented in order for the Mother's Day holiday, you had to plan to get it into production with enough time to make sure it was working, prior to May, and that there were no errors. And then as a result, if you had a project that was due to go into production, let's say May 1st, it was not going to go in because it was too close to that Mother's Day holiday. Yeah. So that was one that I had to kind of learn what are the significant code releases for a company, or the environment that you're working in, what impacts you. And I don't think that's sometimes not necessarily a problem with maybe smaller companies, but from a global perspective, some of the resources that I used were a world calendar, learning time zones, being considerate of other employees that you're working with in other countries. I mean, really simply to even understanding when they take lunch, because
I suppose, with Europe, you get quite big chunks of time where people take long lunches, I suppose.
Yeah, and it's just different. And, the one thing that, that I learned is you just, that's why when you're working with other people or you're talking with other people in other cultures or other environments, it's best to really take the time as a PM to get to know them or ask them those questions that may just seem obvious, but it doesn't. And when you're working with them and, you don't send them a meeting request when it's their time to go home or when they're, usually eating. I mean, those are simple things that you learn along the way, but sometimes they're overlooked if you're not aware of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some interesting advice there.
Another great sponsor of the show comes in the form of Air Manual. Air Manual is it's a tool for documenting process, which and best practices. It's a company formed by one of my interviewees, Alexis Kingsbury. Essentially, and I kind of summarised why my view of where we see documentation, a lot of my experience has been people will document something, a process, they'll put it in a Visio diagram that gets loaded onto a SharePoint site or something similar, and then a bunch of that. So then once that diagram's been shared with senior management, they're happy they have a process in the business. But then the detailed procedures underneath it might be in Word documents, in just poorly kept and not linked easily and not updated. And what Air Manual does, it allows you to put in it's a tool for doing this kind of thing. You whack it in, the service in there, get in there, put in your process, your flow, and you build it down to as low a level of detail, even to the point of checklists where people can check off they've done it. So it creates that guided checklists, easy to create, easy to maintain, and all in one place. And no one's kind of rooting around to find the SharePoint, and then when you change to new SharePoint services and all that stuff, it's all there. So if you pop along to nigelcreaser.com/airmanual, there's a bit more detail there and a link there to click on to go and get. I think they offer a trial and things like that. So it's something that I think can easily reduce the amount of errors, rework, etc. in our organisations. So take a look. hope you enjoyed that interview with Patti. Come back next week and listen to the second part. Look after yourself. Bye. So this is my final wrap-up. Every week you're going to hear this. You're going to get bored of it, but you can always click next podcast if so. If you have enjoyed it, if you've listened to this podcast to the end of this show and you think, that was great, I'd love to be able to help Nigel out, there are loads of ways you can do it. The first and obvious way is to share the podcast. Send it out to people. If you know colleagues and friends who'd benefit from it, you think they'd enjoy it, just send them the link. Grab one of the links, or send them to www.nigelcreaser.com/podcasts. That's www.nigelcreaser.com/podcasts, and that will push them over to a Linktree link, and it's got all of the different ways they can consume the podcast. If you are feeling generous and have a big bag of cash, you could grab a copy of one of my books. Obviously, they're available in all the usual places, in print and digital. Again, jump on the website, www.nigelcreaser.com/shop, and that will give you a list of all the different ways that you can contribute and grab copies of the book. Also got links to all my guests' books on there as well, where I get a little bit of a kickback from them. If you are of a sporting mind, I have a number through doing some of my judo and running antics. I've managed to secure a few affiliate links and affiliates there as well. So in there, somewhere in the sponsors page, there's links to those as well. So clicking onto those and grabbing if you're looking to get super fit, then that would be fabulous as well, and I get a little kickback from those. I have a Patreon account. It's patreon.com/sundaylunchpm. So again, you can ping something in there, buy me a coffee or whatever. And finally, obviously the most important is coming back, listen again, because the more of you that come back, the more visibility I get, because there's more times that it's downloaded and all the SEO works and things like that. So yeah, that's it. So if you can help me out, I would be much appreciated. If you can't, don't worry about it. Thank you very much. Cheers now. Bye. My latest the latest affiliate that I've got on the show now is Riverside. I use Riverside to do my interviews, Riverside FM. It kind of offers you a whole, if you like, micro studio management producer tooling and goes beyond that. Has a really good free layer. And I've been using it for a while now. I find it really good. When I've had issues, even though I'm not on one of the higher paid levels, the support has been quick, responsive and of high quality, and people keen to help me. The organisation seems really good. The product seems really intuitive, and quality is really good as well. And it's a clever way of doing it is when you're recording through your browsers, so you're not got loads of desktop resources being used compared to some other products that I've used. And what they also do is they stream a lower quality version of it up onto as you're doing the interview, so you're not burning bandwidth while you're doing the interview and potentially impacting on the quality of the conversation. And then at the end, it uploads it, the higher quality from your browser. It's just a really good way of doing it. So if you are thinking of doing a podcast and know someone who's doing a podcast, I would recommend using this tool. I found it really good. Best of the tools that I've tried using to date. And you can get that at nigelcreaser.com/riverside, and that will redirect you to my kickback page on their site, and there I will get a little kickback from them. So take a look. Thanks. Well, it's goodbye from me, Nigel Creaser, and it's goodbye from him, the Sunday Lunch PM. Goodbye.